Arena.
SAGA Podcast.
What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Space Arena Ground Arena, where we cover Star Wars Unlimited from the ground up into space. I'm your host, I'm Banana Crapshoot. On the internet, in real life, I'm known as Josh. And with me tonight is Mr. Ben, and I think he's known everywhere as Mr. Ben. How are you doing?
Pretty much, yeah. Man, I haven't talked to you since last year.
Yeah, it's
Are
crazy.
dad jokes welcome here?
Yeah, dad jokes are very much welcome. And encouraged. They're very much encouraged. Dad jokes and puns. You know, that's what we live on.
Unavoidable. Like, we're talking about Star Wars.
Middle-aged
So
men.
what have you been playing, man?
I just had a brain fart. Ticket to Ride. Ticket to Ride. My wife's been into Ticket to Ride. Also got the kid this one game for Christmas called My First Dragon Adventure. It's like a adventure board game for kids, where the goal is to get to the dragon's lair and convince him to fly back to the village and relight the marshmallow fire that everyone roasts their marshmallows on. And you can stage the difficulty higher. There's like 5 different dragons, and each one is harder to convince to go to the village than the last. So you collect gems and stones along the way, and you have to roll a d10, and depending what you roll, he'll either say no, yes, but I need X amount of gemstones to bribe me, or just, yeah, I'll help you. So the kids have been enjoying that. And then Star Wars Unlimited I've been playing too. What about you? What have you been up to?
Does that play like a dungeon crawler? Like, I mean, obviously like a kid-friendly version, but is it...
No, there's
like
one
you take
called
your
Quest.
turn, you build your...
There's one called Quest Kids that is like a kid-friendly dungeon crawler that we also got them for Christmas. But this is more like Candyland with extra steps. So you,
okay.
instead of like getting a card, everyone has 3 cards, and there are different numbers on them. And then you play that card to move that many spaces. And then there's some cards that allow you to go forward and move everyone else back. So it's like this race. And then there's chests on the map, and if you land on a chest, you grab a gemstone or a key and use keys to take shortcuts through the map. It's more like Candyland with extra steps.
My interest level plummeted when you use Candyland as a comparison point. Like,
yeah, but Candyland doesn't have, a dragon that you can scale the difficulty onto. Fly.
Fun. It also doesn't have that.
It has a dragon. No, but if you wanted like a kid-friendly dungeon crawler, there's one called Quest Kids. That's like a kid-friendly dungeon crawler. And the goal is to like scare away a bunch of monsters and find treasure. What have you been playing?
Well, my favorite versus event of the year is fast approaching. The weekend of January 15th is the Midwinter Gaming Convention, which includes the Midwinter Classic, which, while versus Worlds at Gen Con, obviously the World Championship is the biggest versus event of the year. Midwinter is the one that's near and dear to my heart. And this year I'm going not to compete, but to try to put out like high quality, accessible video versus content with good commentary, the kind of thing you can put on and understand what's going on if you're not already like a huge devotee of the game. It's something I think the game has needed for a really long time. So it's less that I've been playing and more that I've been like studying, trying to make sure I know the meta, I can reference cards without fumbling, and deliver like a really good, contribute some value to the already really good experience that is Midwinter. Shout out to Peter for putting this on.
So are you working like through Upper Deck to facilitate that, or with the person organizing the event at the Midwinter?
Yeah, so the first Midwinter was primarily organized by Carlos. Carlos, Peter, and Theo were originally the Team Attack podcast and Versus, and this was a wholly community, the now defunct Team Attack podcast. This was a wholly community grown event, and Upper Deck has been very supportive over the years. They have at times been an official regional. At other times, they're a cash supported event that's not a regional. which gives them a little more leeway in terms of like format and stuff. So I don't want to get into the super specifics because I'm not part of the administration. I'm just working with Peter, so I don't know all the ins and outs of it. But that is my intent this year, to go and try to contribute to what is already an awesome tournament in my small way.
Cool. That should be good.
I'm looking
there was
forward to it.
somebody-
I'm stoked.
There's somebody in the Versus community to cast an event. You're the guy to do it. So,
Oh, well, thanks,
are you
man.
gonna have
I appreciate
someone-
the vote of confidence.
who's are you gonna have a co-pilot on that ride, or
So
is it gonna be you?
it has not been officially confirmed and announced, but there is. I have been talking to somebody else whose entire trip to Midwinter is sort of predicated on potentially being my co-pilot on this endeavor. So we'll see if he's able to make it work or not. But I don't want to say and then have him not be able to make it work, and that would be disappointing. So until it's 100%, it's going to be a
Right.
secret.
I got it. I hope it works out.
Me too.
So tonight we're gonna quickly touch on the draft and sealed stream and article from yesterday, and then we're gonna check out some recently previewed cards and give our hot takes. And then we got a community deck list we're gonna talk about that you can find on SwooDB. And then we're going to dive into listener questions. So we're going to start off with draft and sealed, just real quick before we dive into like specifics on how draft and sealed is going to work. Do you have any quick thoughts on just draft and sealed in general for Star Wars Unlimited?
Well, in general, sealed has always been one of my favorite formats. Well, I mean, I just went on at length about how much I like Versus. One of the biggest flaws in that game is the fact that it doesn't come in the packs that lend themselves to playing draft or sealed. And yeah, you can build a cube and do that stuff, but it's not the same. It takes that. I appreciate draft. I really enjoy playing draft, but there's something about sealed that I really like, getting my whole pool of cards and being able to, I guess they call it subtractive manufacture, but like whittle it away and find the gem of the deck within that. Whereas draft, I feel more like you're adding to something as you pick each card, and that's a totally valid format. I like it a great deal, but the sealed experience really hits home for me. That's always been one of my favorites.
Yeah, I think I did a couple draft events for Star Wars Destiny. And then I've done some sealed events for some other games, and I don't know if it's just how the function of how draft worked in Star Wars Destiny, where you had to buy like an extra kit that you had to use just to be able to draft, right? So, but for me, I enjoyed the sealed more than I did draft, but I still think draft in Star Wars Unlimited can be fun. I don't know if just how draft worked in Star Wars Destiny kind of soured me on. Didn't really sour me, but I'm less excited for that than I am for sealed.
I think, to be fair to people who lean more draft, I think the argument in favor of it is that the social element adds sort of another layer of skill testing, things like hate drafting or knowing, hey, this person is on that based on the cards that they handed me, and being able to kind of read what's going on with your opponents. Like, all of that factors into it as well. And I think somebody who wants to make the argument that like those are additional skill checks and additional points where a skilled player can differentiate themselves. And if somebody wants to make that case, I'm totally open to it. I think all those points are valid. And still, I kind of prefer the sealed experience, but that's me.
Yeah. So just real quick, they talked about on the stream and in the article they released right after about how draft actually works. So typically you're going to have 8 people, right? There's 24 packs in a box. You're going to get 8 people together. Everybody's going to get 3 packs. You're going to open them up, and you're only going to look at the leaders. You're going to slide the leaders out, and you're not going to look at the rest. Now, when you open them, should have the leader first and then the base, so you shouldn't see the other cards even if you take the whole pack out. So you're going to take your 3 leaders out of your packs, put them together. You're going to draft a leader, pick one of them to keep, and pass the other leaders to the right. And then you're going to go again, pass them to the right. And then you take your bases, and you pick one of your 3 packs, grab the base token on the top, and throw it in the middle of the table. Pick one of your remaining cards, and then you pass to the left. And then when that pack's empty, get your next pack, throw that base in the middle, and you pass to the right. And then your third one goes to the left again. You should have about 45 cards, 3 leaders, and 42 other cards. If you draft a rare base, those are the only bases that are drafted, then you'll have like 41 cards. And then your deck size is 30 cards. You can have as many copies of the same card, though you're not limited to the 3. So if you draft like 5 Luke Skywalkers, you can play all 5. You can only play the leaders you draft. In between games, you can switch up the leaders and other cards in your deck as long as they're the cards you drafted. That seems like a pretty straightforward way to draft, right? Pick a card, pass it, pick a card, pass it. There's nothing really special there other than how the bases, you can pick any base afterwards. Any of the common bases you can use. You don't draft the bases except if it's a rare base. So other than the leaders being drafted separately from the rest of the cards and the bases being easily accessible, it seems like a pretty straightforward draft format. Anything
So
that
in
sticks out to you?
yes, there is one thing that sticks out to me really badly. But before I get to the sore thumb, in principle, I love every single part of this. I like that the bases are common, like lands and magic, so you don't get like screwed into certain colors. You can actually build the deck that you want to build based on your draft and then get the appropriate base colors. Even if that changes mid-draft, you don't have to commit to that base until you're in it because you get to grab that common. I think that's great. I love all of that. The thing that I just see being a source of problem and consternation and argument is this idea that you're going to open packs and grab 2 cards and not look at the rest. Dude, people are going to look at those cards. Other people are going to see somebody look at a card and get mad about it. Like, that feels like a recipe for, like, I mean, honest mistakes are going to happen. Like, how many times have you just cracked a pack and like, oh, I wasn't supposed to look at that. Sorry. Like, I get that we're all adults and giving people simple instructions, we should be able to expect people to follow them. But that just feels like the most natural thing in the world is to crack a pack and start thumbing through the cards. And so we're kind of asking people to go against that human nature. And I see that as being, if you're running an event where draft is happening, I would pay attention to this and be really clear and explicit with people to try to head this off at the pass before people start yelling at each other for looking at cards when they're not supposed to. Because I could really see that happening.
Does it really matter though? That's my question. Like, this all just
But if
seems
it's the
like,
rule,
I know, but it seems kind of superficial because if I have those 3 packs, I'm going to look at those cards before anybody else anyway. I guess you would just, maybe it would form some of your decisions more at the
yeah, I think
beginning.
the issue would not be thumbing through the first pack as soon as you open it. The issue would be thumbing through all 3 and then being able to make decisions informed by what you know your first draft pick is going to be in 3 subsequent packs. That's a lot of information, and that's not the way draft would typically go. Typically, you would open packs one at a time, but because of the unique nature of Unlimited, this is going to be a unique challenge for our game. It's not insurmountable. I'm not trying to be doom and gloom about it. It's just, I've run events. I feel like I understand people a little bit, and this is a thing. If you're running an event, I would keep an eye on this and make sure people are well informed how it's supposed to work.
Yeah. Guess we'll find out. So that's one thing when the at PAX Unplugged when the community draft happened, leaders were drafted as part of the packs. And Tyler did mention that we're making this a lot harder on ourselves. So I think that's kind of what he was referencing, was the leader kind of draft happening before everything else.
Mechanically, functionally, I totally agree. I think that is the more rewarding way to do it. I just see a potential pain point where, I mean, you could make it the rule that, like, hey, you can just look at your packs. And then if that's the rule, then everybody will do it. Everybody has equal information, and then it's fine. But it kind of either has to be everybody follows the rule and doesn't, or everybody just gets to look at their cards. But if it's like some people get that extra information, that's not cool. Like, that's got to be
Right.
managed.
I think. I
And I
mean,
think it can
really,
be. Again, I'm not doom and gloom.
if the packs are you pull it out, it's leader and then base. It shouldn't be that difficult if you know, hey, I'm not supposed to look at this yet. It shouldn't be. Right? It doesn't mean it's gonna be. Shouldn't be.
Well,
Pull it
and
out.
I'm not even talking about legitimate people like angle shooting. Like, there could be people who are trying to play dumb to get that advantage. That could be a thing. But setting that, like, if somebody's going to cheat, they're going to cheat. We can only do so much. Set that aside. I just
If
mean
you're
like the
cheating in a
honest
draft event,
mistake.
like if you're cheating in a draft event, like what are we
Yeah,
doing here?
I don't want to
You
get
know?
hung up on anti-cheating. That was not so much my point. My point
Right.
was I see this as a place where honest mistakes could happen and it could cause like arguments. And we want to get out ahead of that. Like, at least as that's my TO brain. That's my dad brain. Like,
Mm-hmm.
how can I solve this problem before it happens? And that's the part that stuck out to me. Like, in testing, we're all on the like, imagine we're play testing this game. Everybody's on the same page. Nobody's trying to shoot angles or whatever, because like that's not the purpose that you're there for. So seeing how this works in the real world when you have actual competitive people trying to do it with each other, this might be a thing that they didn't see in the playtesting environment, because playtesters aren't really trying to like tear each other to pieces. But again, I think it's manageable. It's just, as a TO, it's something I would pay attention to.
I think it's fair. Revisit this after launch and after some real drafts happen, and we can see if it's a problem or
I
not.
guess this is assuming pack collation is good. And, if the packs are not reliably put together in the way they're supposed to be, finding the leader could, like, if you have to look through the cards to find them, that could be an issue too. But
This ain't Lorcana, dude. We're gonna be okay.
dude, I think the whole TCG community is a little bit PTSD from the Lorcana launch.
Dude, have you seen the amount of, how like at the end of a print run there'll be like a card that isn't supposed to be used and it says like discard on it,
Mm-hmm.
and like that's like a rare thing in other games. It is like more uncommon than rare in Lorcana. The amount of posts I've seen of people getting the discard card at the end of the run is kind of shocking. Like the quality
Yeah, it feels like it's a
control
lot.
was not great. But moving on, we're
Although,
not here to talk about Ravensburger.
okay, yeah, let's not go down a Lorcana rabbit hole. Let's talk about Star Wars Unlimited. I have opinions there too.
Yeah. Sealed play. Everyone gets 6 booster packs. Those are yours. You open those up. You build a 30 card deck with the stuff you opened in your 6 packs. That's how the pre-release box is going to be. You can only use the leaders you open in your packs, right? You're not drafting them. But the pre-release box comes with the Luke and Vader promos. So you will be able to use those in your deck building. So just something to think about. But yeah, nothing fancy with sealed. Just open your 6 packs, build, and get playing. So,
I like it. I like that you
sense.
don't need
I don't know how you
an
can
outside
change sealed.
Yeah, it's that sleek, smooth experience that I'm looking for. Give me a pool of cards to whittle into a world-beating deck. That's what I want to do. Perfect.
With a bunch of one-ofs. So and they did say there's going to be a multiplayer format that they're going to preview in the next couple weeks. So we'll look forward to that. But that was basically it from like the article and how draft and sealed works. And then on the stream, if you didn't watch the stream, Tyler kind of talked through his choices as he was drafting. And then they played 2 games. So if you haven't seen the stream, go to FFG's YouTube channel and you can see the live stream from yesterday. Any final thoughts on draft and sealed before we move on?
I'm really excited. Knowing what we know about PAX, it looks good. I'm excited to play it.
One thing I will say is yesterday, the amount of foils that they pulled was like, it's got me excited, right? There was a good amount of foils in hyperspace, and like seeing those alternate treatments has got my like I'm a guy,
So,
so
but
this
now there's the conspiracy theory. Do you think they like seeded those packs to have like lots of bling cards to get people excited? What do you think?
I don't think so. From what I understand, they
No.
just opened a box, but with actual like final product version. Um, I'm a sucker for having all the things, right? Like if a game comes out, like I need all the things. Even if it's a video game, give me the collector's edition. I want all the things, right? I have this big ass Darth Malga statue from the Star Wars: The Old Republic special collector's edition physical copy, right? That my wife hates, but I have it anyway. I need all the things. So when I see the fancy things, cards are game pieces. I don't need to go over. I'm not a super hardcore collector, but I like the things. You know what I'm saying? So giving me access to the things and seeing them in person, not in person, but on the stream got me kind of juiced up for. I'm ready to open packs, man. I want to open a pack and I want to smell it. And I want to have that new card smell. You know what I'm talking about? You know exactly what I'm.
Of
No,
course I
no,
know what you're talking about.
no, you don't. You play Versus System. They all. That's 55 cards in a
I mean,
box.
there's a smell there too, man. Come on.
Cellophane. It's a little different than when you open that booster pack and. Now, some games you open it up and they smell like crap because the game's crap. But Star Wars Unlimited, I know it's going to smell like, I don't know, blue milk or something. It's going to be great. I'm ready to crack packs, man.
Blue milk. Oh man. Yeah, in order for me to get excited about the special treatments, I have to know what cards I like because that's when I want the special ones. Like generally I'm a player that I want to have all the common versions of all the cards so I can just build every deck. I want all the tools in my utility belt. And then when I find, oh, this is my thing that I love, then I want the blinged out version of the Thrawn leader. You know what I mean? Like but I got to
Mm-hmm.
get the cards in my hand before I can really decide what I need to chase after.
I'm there with you. All right, I think we're ready to move on to card previews. Try to hammer through these. So I think you prepared a nice thing. Oh
Okay.
man, we got a bunch
So
to
we'll
go
start
over,
with the
don't we?
Jawa Scavenger. Uh, One cost cunning, 2/1 with Saboteur. I think he's good.
Yeah, I think he's good. I think he's better than the ISB agent for a 1-cost yellow unit. 2 attacks, nice for a 1
It
cost. The
it
Saboteur
really
for
comes
that
down to the
cheap.
word Saboteur, in my opinion.
Seeing a cheap Saboteur, good to have access to. The art on this is pretty baller too.
Yeah, like in a way, would you pay a 1-cost event that was like remove shields from target unit or what something like that? Like that's kind of what this does. I think with a body attached. So yeah, I'm with it. And I guess it shouldn't be overlooked that this could be 2 face damage at the end of the game to close it out that sneaks past that Sentinel.
Yeah,
All right, Vanguard Ace, 2-cost, cunning, and heroism affiliated. 1/1 space unit. When played, for each other card you played this phase, give an experience token to this unit. What are your thoughts?
I'm not very excited about this one. This is basically Hit Monkey, right? But not as good. If you're familiar with Hit Monkey and Marvel Snap, I am not very high on this card currently. I think maybe eventually you get to a deck, but I think by the time you can play this card and get any value out of it, like you're just playing other things at that point. This is going to be a binder card for me, I think.
I don't know when this looks good. Because if you play this late game, are you chaining a bunch of 1-cost cards together to buff this into being a mediocre unit? Like, as is, if you play this earlier and you're not able to chain cards into it first, it's just bad. And in its optimal play setting, it's kind of like okay. I guess you could make it big-ish for the space arena if you really, really focus on that. Uh, but I just don't see that payoff being worth it. I don't understand this card. Maybe in the future when we have some kind of a miracle deck, this will be a beater in that. But with the card pool we have now, no, unimpressed. He's not an ace.
No. Vanguard coaster.
Cassian Andor. This is an aggression heroism affiliated leader, undeployed. He has pay 1 and exhaust. If you've dealt 3 or more damage to an enemy base, draw a card. You're able to deploy him once you have 6 resources. He's a 4/6 with Saboteur, and when you deal damage to an enemy base, you may draw a card. Only triggers once per round, but it doesn't have to be him, and it doesn't have to be a specific amount of damage like his undeployed triggers. How do you feel about Cassian?
I think he's okay. I think he is more so like Sabine's the other aggression heroism leader. She's more of your fast aggro version. I think he's more with his ability to draw cards is more of like a mid-range aggression leader, especially deploying at 6 resources. He's good. It's a little later till you. I mean, he deploys after Boba Fett, so he's definitely more of a mid-game aggression leader. I don't know that we have the card pool to make him that great. I think he's fine. I think you can do fine with him with a deck. Card draw is nice in any card game, generally. So I think he can be fine, but I don't think he's going to be like the tier 1 deck because I think other leaders do the mid-range game better than he does currently, and other leaders do the aggression game better than he does currently. So I think he's in a weird spot that I think he needs a little more support, but I think he can be fine, and the card draw is definitely something you can try to build around, but I just think he's not quite there yet to be considered like tier 1.
There is a not insignificant amount of the time when his undeployed side is just blank, where you either don't have the resource to devote to it, or you can't get the 3 damage into the base. That's not great. You're absolutely right that deploying on 6 is very slow. His stats I don't feel like that they're representative of him deploying so late. Now, admittedly, some of that is because I think some of his stat block is invested in the Saboteur keyword, and having that keyword on a leader is a big deal. Like, that's a highlight on this card. And his deployed side, being able to draw cards without having to do a specific amount of damage and then pay additional resources for it. His deployed side, I kind of like, other than the fact that I'm not going to be able to see it until 6 resources, turn 5. I don't see anything that he does that somebody else doesn't do better. So I
Yep.
more or less agree with everything you said. I can't bring myself to like hate the guy, but I can't get too excited about a leader whose undeployed side is just blank some significant percentage of the time.
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay, Rogue Squadron Skirmisher, 6 cost command heroism, 4/6 ground unit. It has ambush, and when played, you can return a unit that costs 2 or less from your discard pile to your hand. Do you think this unit is worth 6 cost?
I'm Ron Burgundy. I don't know what to think about this card. I I don't know what to think. Like, ambush is good. The when played ability I really like. But like, what unit? Okay, so you're round 5 playing this unit. What 2-cost unit is that important that you want to pull it from your discard pile? Like, what's the target there? Why is the limit 2? I don't get it. I don't get the limit on the 2 or less. Like, return a unit from your discard pile to your hand could be. Like, what's wrong with that? You still have to pay for it. It's not like you're paying it for free. The cost limit on that confuses me. The stats aren't great for the cost, but I mean, you're paying for the ambush and you're paying for another 2-cost unit. So if you figure all that together, like if you could just play a 2-cost unit from your discard pile when played, like that, I would like better than just returning it to your hand. Because then it would make sense why you're losing out on some, composite stats at that point. I don't know. This one confuses me. I don't know what to think about it.
Yeah, I don't think this card knows what it wants to do. On the one hand, it's a higher cost card, but it comes into play with the potential of having some immediate action. It's got ambush on there, which I like to see that on. I mean, 6 isn't like a big curve topper, but it's a larger on the larger size of medium cost unit.
Most
Uh,
aggro decks aren't even playing 6 cost units, so I mean
yeah,
you're
so
getting to the
it's on
top.
the bigger side. But then it comes down with 4 attack to back up that immediate board impact. That's so it's got to be swinging down. It's not going to be clearing like big meaningful targets probably. And then it's feeding something into your hand, which feels like the exact opposite kind of vibe. Like the ambush feels like, oh, this is kind of an aggressive board impacty thing. And then it's also kind of setting you up for next turn to be able to play a 2-drop when you're at 7 resources. I guess I don't know what to do with this thing. Probably there will eventually be some kind of control slow deck that needs to recycle an important 1 or 2 drop, and this will be a way for it to get multiple plays of that unit. Right now, I don't think that exists.
I mean, if you just the next card we're gonna look at is a 5 cost, and this 6 cost with the ambush action, doesn't even clear it. So
Yeah.
uh,
Well, let's move on to Zeb then. He's a 5 cost, aggression, heroism, 5/5. When he completes an attack, if the defender was defeated, you may deal 4 damage to a ground unit. So a 5-drop that comes down and potentially can put 9 damage worth of hate onto the other side of the board compared to this 6-drop that can do 4. How do you feel about Zeb as a card?
I love Zeb as a character, as a card. Um, I like that this is probably like an aggression curve topper or like just a good like mid range card that he allows you to go a little wide. Like he deals kind of splash damage. So hits a unit, and then so when this unit completes an attack, it means he has to survive the attack. So he attacks and defeats something, and then he's going to deal 4 damage to another ground unit. I like his ability to control the ground arena with 1 card and affect multiple cards. And his 5/5 is like right on with where you think he should be. So I think he's great, and a bonus for playing him in a Hera deck that's not red because she doesn't have to pay the aspect penalty for not having aggression. So if you want to play a Vigilance or Cunning Hera deck, you can still have Zeb. So I like him.
Yeah, all upside, fair stats with a good ability. I mean, probably the only drawback to this dude is it's such a good ability that your opponent is very likely going to invest resources in preventing you from getting this to go off. Speaking of things your opponent might want to remove, let's look at a 7-cost fatty. Command Villainy Affiliated Darth Vader Ground Unit 5/7. Ambush. I like that word. When played, search the top 10 cards of your deck for any number of villainy units with a combined cost of 3 or less, and play each of them for free. I mean, I get that it costs 1 more than the card we just looked at, but it's just better in every way. Every possible way.
Mm-hmm. Darth Vader's awesome. Like, it's another boss monster, right? We talked before about how I like the boss monster. I guess it's a Timmy, right? I guess I'm a Timmy. Isn't that the Timmy that likes the big units?
I believe so, yes.
5/7 is better than 4/6. Ambush, and then when played, you can play up to 3 things for free. Now they're going to be 1 cost weenies, but playing like 2 TIE fighters and just like a Death Star Stormtrooper, right? So you're playing, that's 7 attack. You're just playing for free on top of his 5/7, or playing like a First Legion Snowtrooper. Like you can get upside is 3 weenies, right? But you could get like one really good Boba Fett unit that's a 3 cost, like 3/5, or a really good like First Legion Snowtrooper, which is like the 2/3 with Overwhelm and deals +2 if he's dealing damage to something that already has damage. So like there's some good plays you can do with this Vader effect that you get an upside of 3 units, but most of the time it's going to be like 1 or 2. But that's still being able to play something for free is always good. And I love the artwork. I like this Vader a lot.
I think it's worth pointing out that 10 is a super meaningful number of cards to get a look at as well. Like at this point in the game, even if you're not drawing extra cards, 10 is still going to be like a quarter of your remaining deck. So I think you can feel pretty confident that in addition to getting to recruit this guy to the board, attack and kill something, probably value trade and keep him alive because his butt's so big. On top of that, I think you can be confident that you're going to hit either like one juicy target or a combination of small targets that just thin your deck out. And like the old saying, you got to thin it to win it. Like every part of this thing works very well.
Throw a Darth Vader lightsaber on him and, deal a butt ton more damage because playing it on him deals 4
GG.
damage. Playing it on him deals 4 damage to another unit, and then he's like +3/+1, so he's an 8/8 at that point. He's good. I'm getting this playmat, by the way, with this artwork on it.
I do like the art a great deal as well. Moving on to some art I'm not super impressed with. Moment of Peace. 1 cost Vigilance affiliated event. Give a shield token to a unit. You play this in sealed. In draft, you hope to pass this to somebody else. I don't think this makes the cut in constructed. Maybe if there's eventually something that gives you like bonus synergy for having shields and you need extra shields, maybe at that, but just like as a combat trick, this is not enough value. This is not worth 1 cost. This is not worth a slot in your deck. I do not like this card. What do you think?
It's whatever. It's, draft or sealed. It's, maybe, I don't, maybe.
I was
don't even
hoping
think
you were
this.
going to have like a really strong take in favor of it.
No, I don't. Yeah, this is a great
No.
card maybe in sideboards for draft events. It's one of the 12 cards you don't put in your 30 card deck. And there you go.
I mean, I suppose I could see a world where being able to side this in to foil a specific like damage based removal tool that you know your opponent has. But like look at how many hoops we're jumping through, and that's assuming there isn't a better way to do that in whatever format. Yeah, I don't want to talk about this card anymore. Okay, Echo Based Defender, 3 cost, command, heroism affiliated, 4/3 Sentinel. How do you feel about this dude?
How does this have the same attack power as that freaking snow speeder with ambush? Right? This card's way better. Right? The Sentinel.
Cost.
You don't pay this. I don't think you play this for the Sentinel. That's irrelevant. You play this because it's a 3 cost unit with 4 attack that you can get extra mileage out of in like a Leia deck. The Sentinel, the 3 health on a Sentinel unit is like, this is going to be one shot by things. You play this for the 4 attack because you can trade up at that point with this card. They're going to have to swing down into this thing to remove it most of the time. And that other thing's going to get defeated most of the time. But I think you play this for the 4 power. You don't play this for the stuff. But I like this one.
I could definitely see a world where that 4 power does not end up being relevant because your opponent always trades something that has less than 4 defense into this to clear it. Because there's a lot of 3 attack options that, I mean, you're going to stun a 3/1 the same way you're going to stun a 3/4. But 4/3 is still a respectable stat block for a 3 cost unit, and it has Sentinel on it. In limited environments, I think this is a knockout, and you're probably going to see it. Constructed, I'm less convinced, but it's playable. I don't think this is just the stats alone. I think this is playable on the back of that. 5 cost, 7th Sister, Aggression, Villainy affiliated ground unit. She is a 3/6 Saboteur. I like that word. When this unit deals combat damage to an opponent's base, you may. Let me start again. I'm sorry. You may deal 3 damage to a ground unit that opponent controls. I think she is very good.
She really helps if you're trying to make Grand Inquisitor work. Right now, you have another option besides Fifth Brother. Look at that. The Inquisitors work well together. Who would have thought? She is a menace with a lightsaber because of how big her butt is. You give her a fallen lightsaber, that's a +3/+3. Now you have a 6/9 that is dealing like 9 damage every turn. And Saboteur guarantees she's going to hit the base. So she's an absolute menace. I think for 5, I think if you're running any sort of red deck where you're playing lightsabers or force chokes, I think she's definitely an option you need to look at because her ability to cards that do multiple good things end up being good cards, right? We talked about that earlier with Zeb. This is a similar thing where she can spread damage around. But instead of using it all on units, she is a little bit more flexible for the same cost where she can hit base and splash a ground unit. So I like Seventh Sister.
One of the biggest weaknesses of the face is the place mentality of aggro decks is that if you're putting all your damage into the opponent's base in this game, it means your opponent gets to dictate all the trades. So the trades are always favorable to them, and you fall behind on board. This is exactly the kind of card that an aggressive deck wants because you can put some damage onto the base, and then you have that knock-on effect where you get to clean up something off the board, which essentially solves one of the weaknesses of those that super aggressive decks tend to always have. Yeah, this is a very good card. This is a curve topper for a hard aggro deck. Force Throw. 1 cost, aggression affiliated event. Choose a player. That player discards a card from their hand. I'm laughing thinking about Slip. Then if you control a force unit, you may deal damage to a unit equal to the cost of the discarded card. I don't know how often you're going to get good damage off the if you control a force unit part, because your opponent has to see that setup in play so that if they can, they're going to choose a card that's going to give you a tiny amount of damage. But even 2 feels pretty good after you've already stripped a card from their hand. I mean, I'm kind of okay with that. I think this is pretty strong, man.
I think for 1 cost, this card's ridiculous. Just for 1 cost, I'm making you drop something from your hand. In early game, that is devastating because in the early game, before you flip from I'm keeping 2 cards every turn, right? You start with 4, and you're gonna have normally 4 or less cards until you deploy. If you're playing a card every turn, so this really it's and normally people that are deck building aren't putting bad cards in their deck, so they're getting rid of something they probably don't want to get rid of, and then the possibility of them having to hit themselves with that is just amazing. The artwork is baller. If they don't have a playmat for this, I'm gonna get one made myself. And yeah, this is just a great card all around. Thumbs up for Force Choke and Force Throw. Good job on the Force ability events.
Yeah, even not having the force unit.
Yeah, just one to get rid of a card.
I guess I should say, if you look at it in a true value exchange, you're paying a resource and a card to dislodge your opponent's worst card from their hand. That is objectively a bad trade because you're investing more into that exchange than you're taking from your opponent. But being in control of that feels pretty good. Like you were pointing out early in the game, before you make the switch into the keep 2 stage of play, when you're still resourcing every turn, losing a single card, even if it costs me a little more up front, what it might do to your play lines down the line can sometimes be worth it. And you add direct damage on top of a discard card. I don't know about this one, man.
And I think Vigilance Heroism, like you're gonna see this card all the time because they have the most force units right now. You have Kanan, you have Yoda, right? You have Luke, you have so if you're playing like a blue-red hero deck, like you have access to a lot of force units. Obi-Wan Kenobi is a blue force unit, right? I think they have the most force units. I mean, because red villain just has fifth brother and seventh sister, one Palpatine, but that's at 8, right? So, um, yeah, I think if you're playing against a blue-red hero deck, like expect Force Throw to come at you. Any villain deck, I mean any red deck, but especially if you're playing like blue in hero and then red villain is where the force units are there. So just something to think about.
Yeah, if your opponent has red in their deck and a leader with the word force uh, printed on it, it seems like a card you might need to be ready for.
Even without the leader, like just like because blue hero on 3 can play Yoda, on 4 can play Kanan, and then on 6 can play Obi-Wan, and on 7 can play Luke. Like,
That's a lot of activators.
yeah, I mean that's 12 of their 50. Just I don't know. Maybe that's not good enough odds. Maybe you definitely bank on the leader, but I'm fine
I mean,
force
I
throwing
tend
you
to
with Kanan
be.
out there.
I'm the kind of player who gets really annoyed when I end up with cards in my hand that aren't doing what I want them to do. So, like, in my mindset, I feel like if I'm going to play cards that require force activators, I probably want to have at least one turn in the game where I can guarantee that's on board, and that's going to be my leader deploy turn.
Hmm.
That may be too conservative, but I do tend to be a little bit of a conservative player, so that could just be my bias showing. All right. Any other thoughts on force throw, or are we ready to move on?
Let's move on. This one, I
All
like
right.
this next one for reasons.
2-cost pirated Starfighter, Hunting affiliated space unit, 2/4 with raid 1, and when played, return a friendly non-leader unit to its owner's hand. All right. How do you feel about the pirated Starfighter?
This card's funny. So if you play this card turn 1 to an empty board, you have to bounce it back to your own hand. It's not a May effect. You have to return a friendly non-leader unit. So you can play this, and it kind of reminds me of the meme where the guy like throws all of his papers out of his hands and he's like, F this, I'm out. And then he's like, no, I'm kidding, I need that. But it's just the opposite. It's like, I need this card. Nope, just kidding. It's back to my hand. Like,
I just wanted to show it to you.
yeah. Like the stats on this card are good. Like rate like a 2-cost 3/4 essentially. That's really good in the
On the
space
attack, yeah.
arena. That's awesome. But the when played effect is so like, what are we doing here? Like, you gotta play something else first, and then you gotta bounce like this. This is just wild
Well,
to
it
me. This
effectively prevents you from opening on your first turn with this.
oh, you
Like,
can't because it's
I
gonna
think that's if they just said you can't play this turn 1, that's kind of what they were going for. And instead, they gave us some utility. So the drawback of them not letting you get out to this ridiculous, like, could you imagine if you could play a 3/4 on turn 1? Like, I get it's only a 3/4 on the attack, but still, it's going to be attacking a lot if you deploy this on your first turn.
just the 4 health
But
on that unit is ridiculous.
and then the drawback, the bounce, has the added utility of like, oh, cool, I'm going to put whatever back in my hand. Now it's fully healed, and I'm going to play it again. So I don't even think it's the only time that drawback is a drawback is turn 1. Every turn after that, that says heal a friendly unit. You know,
So here's the combo. You play the ISB agent. He's a 1-cost 1/3 villainy cunning. When played, you reveal an event to deal damage to a unit. So you play the ISB agent, play the pirated starfighter, bounce him back to hand, play him again, deal damage. You know, you just that's all I got. That's the only
it's not a bad combo.
play Leia, ready a resource, Or exhaust the dude next turn, bounce Leia back, play Leia again, exhaust or ready a resource. I guess there's some tricks there. Hey, this is a way you could get around the Millennium Falcon tax too. No, because then you got to pay 3 next time. I'd rather pay 1 than pay 3.
The drawback is definitely sort of like has upside hidden inside it. So it's like a good card with a drawback that secretly gives you positive synergy in the right situation. Yeah, this might be tricky in a more limited environment, but even there, I think the upside, like the drawback of having to bounce a single dude, is not that big of a deal.
This card just makes me laugh. Yeah.
All right, heroic sacrifice, 1 cost, aggression, heroism, affiliated event. Draw a card, then attack with a unit. For this attack, it gets +2 attack and gains when this unit deals combat damage, defeat it.
So
It's 1 cost reach, so you can burst for 2 bigger than your opponent was expecting, which could push to win the game. Lets you draw a card, lets you take out a unit your opponent wasn't expecting you to be able to deal with. At 1 cost, like I see no downside on this card. This is a very good card.
yeah, and just so when this unit deals combat damage basically means when this unit deals damage with its attack power. So if you buff a unit, but you have to attack with the unit. So I mean there's no way to get around it. When you attack with this thing, that thing's gonna die. The combo right now that works really well is with K2SO. Go figure, since he's on the artwork for this card, because he's a 4/4 with Overwhelm, and then his when defeated effect allows him to deal 3 damage to a base or discard a card from your opponent's hand. So you pay 1, you attack with K2SO with Overwhelm into something, he's dealing 9 damage with that attack overall, because he's going to deal 6 with the Overwhelm, and then he's going to deal 3 damage to the base. So yeah, really good card. This is another card that I want to artwork on a playmat. Yeah, just +2, right? So, I mean, Surprise Strike is 2 for +3. This is 1 for +2. Cunning has Shoot First, which is 1 for +1, but pseudo first strike. So, yeah, the downside is you defeat your unit, but you combo this with units with good when defeated effects, and it kind of negates that.
Or if you're pushing for game,
Pushing
like,
for game, and I think any unit with Overwhelm, right, that you can push, clear Sentinel unit and push more damage through
if
the
you
base.
were going to have to trade anyway, like there's 100 different permutations where the defeat text. This is like the last card we looked at, where it's like a good card with kind of a poison pill nested inside it, but inside the poison pill is nested more positive synergy in the right circumstance. Only this one only costs 1.
Yeah. Plus, and then so Sabine aggro is gonna top of the curve is 4 or 5. Most of the time it's 4. So this with K2SO is gonna end push for game a lot of the time. And if
That's
you're
a
playing
big burst.
And if you're playing like For a Cause I Believe in, this fits right in because you have the heroic symbol to deal that damage off the top of the deck. So overall great card, and it fits really well within what Red Hero wants to do.
Moving on to another curve topper, we have an 8 cost AT Suppressor, Vigilance, Villainy, Ground Unit, 8/8, when played, exhaust all ground units. I mean, I ask for boss monsters to do a thing when they come into play, and that is a thing. Is it a good enough thing for 8 cost? What do you think?
I don't know. I think we got to see. I mean, this is expensive. 8 is as expensive as Palpatine. When he comes in, he's dealing 6 to everything. Or not to everything, but he divides 6 damage. Exhausting all ground units, I think, is... I guess if you're playing a control deck, this could be your card that comes in and lets you turn the corner. Maybe, because you're exhausting all the units. But I think I would like this better if it had Sentinel and exhausted all ground units. That way you had... I think if you can't get this into play with Ambush somehow, I think you're kind of locked into green, and you're trying to play Piet so that anything that costs 6 or more comes in with Ambush. Exhausting all ground units. There's that outmaneuver card in yellow that costs 3 that exhausts all units in an arena. This does the same thing, but it's locked into one arena, and it's attached to a body for 5, paying 5 for the body and 3 for the effect. Like, if you're really, really behind in the ground arena, I guess this stalls you a turn, but then you're still going to be really, really behind if you're exhausting a bunch of units in your opponent's ground arena.
Yep.
I don't know. I draft and sealed. Yeah, this is going to be probably terrifying because I don't know if you're going to have anything on your own deck to handle an 8/8 unit, but in constructed, I think it's just missing something. I think it's a keyword.
If 8 resources hits turn 7, and you've got a bunch of things up, and you're ready to do your big attack and finish me off and push for game, and I play this and tap down all your dudes, and then I have a whole bunch of things that I can attack with, and now I'm pushing for game. In that situation, it might look cool because I tapped all your dudes down, I exhausted all your guys, and now I'm doing 6 things in a row. But let's take a step back. If there's board parity, and I was gonna do those attacks anyway. This doesn't actually help me push more damage. If I'm in big trouble and you're about to kill me, and I play this, okay, I exhausted all your guys down. Now what? I pass turn, and now I'm in the exact same situation. Like, before I can actually attack with this guy, he doesn't have Sentinel, he doesn't have Ambush. The thing that he does is buy you a turn. If your opponent is heavily committed to the ground arena, I don't see it. I don't understand.
Well, even
It
if you
just
play
doesn't feel
him,
like it does enough.
even if you play him, you can attack with your own stuff because you have to have exhausted all them too. It's not all your opponent's ground units; it's all ground units.
You're right.
You exhaust your own.
I misunderstood it, even though I read it like
So,
100 times. I've been
you
thinking about this as only exhausting enemy units.
no,
It
it's
exhausts
all.
all grain. Okay, I'm not on the fence anymore. I do not like this. I think this is bad.
You play this, I just claim, and then I just kill you faster next turn, right?
Yeah. Like, I was trying to give it credit as a win more card. Like, if I have good board position, I play this, exhaust your dudes, and then I get to take advantage of my good board position that I already had. That's not even the case. This takes away my good board position in order to take away your good board position. And then we reset. So it's like time walking myself. I'm
Yep.
using my turn to do nothing. So then we can pass and play. No. I'm not playing this. Jeez. Okay. 2 cost, Vigilance affiliated upgrade, Devotion. It gives a character or gives a unit +1/+1 and restore 2. I think my streak of being a little bit harsh on cards is going to continue with this one. I am not impressed with this. What do you think?
I think it's okay. If you're playing a blue control deck, restore 2, given a unit restore 2 that doesn't have it, like if you have a big butt unit that you're playing Luke and you're giving it shields, like giving something restore 2 can be fine. I think in draft and sealed, you're gonna hate to see your opponent play this. In constructed, I think it could find a place, but it's not. I think it's probably more of a control upgrade, and then I guess at that point you have to ask yourself, if you're playing a control deck, do you want to invest resources into upgrades? So I think it could find a place. I'm not probably as down on it as you are. The artwork I am not very fond of, but
No, I don't understand the
the
artwork at
restore
all.
2 and the +1/+1 I think is fine.
I might be willing to agree with you on the word okay. I think fine is probably strong. I just don't think this doesn't. Like, how many times do you have to attack with it? How much does it have to restore before it's worth it? 2 times? So you heal 4 and get +1/+1 on a unit. Is the unit going to survive long enough to attack twice? I'm struggling to see where you're getting your value. Although your idea of trying to stack shields on top of the unit, sure.
Or
Maybe if
restore,
you're
right?
willing
Like,
to go eggs in one basket on one unit to keep it alive and get mega value out of restore, I'm just not convinced I see that working.
you throw this on Yoda, he's now a restore 4, and he's a 4/5 or whatever. Like, play this on Kanan, and then he's He has restore 2 plus dealing damage off the discard or healing off the discard. Like I think there could be a place for it where it's okay, but I think you
I
gotta
mean,
build.
if the other play you're choosing between is doing nothing, I'll agree with you. But if the other play we're choosing between is playing like a solid 2-drop, I'd pick that 10 times out of 10 over this.
That's fair.
I'm not even sure this makes it into my deck, honestly. But I don't play white in Magic either, so again, maybe my bias is showing. All right, we'll move on to the 6-cost cargo carrier. This is a Vigilance affiliated ground unit. I think Elon Musk is selling these. It's a 4/6. It comes into play with shields, and when played, if you control another Vigi unit, heal 4 damage from your base. Now, this is healing I can get down on. You get like a chonky unit that's sticky because of the shield, and on top of getting decent value out of it, you get to heal your base a little bit. I'm not wild about 4 attack for 6 resources, but I don't think this is an aggressively slanted unit. This is a very controlled, this is a slower unit. So having a big butt, a shield, and some healing, that all kind of fits together. I don't think the hoop of you have to jump through having another vigilance unit is going to be that big of a deal for a blue deck to achieve. It's not very flashy, it's not very exciting, but I think this is a playable 6-drop if you're looking for something that's going to go longer game. I don't think this is your curve topper. I think you need something bigger impact at the top of your curve, but this could be something that a slower, grindier blue deck could maybe get some value out of.
I want to imagine a world where you're playing a whatever blue deck, and I'm playing Hero Command, and it's turn 5. We both have 6 resources, and you play this cargo juggernaut. So then I decide I'm gonna play my whatever speeder with ambush that lets me bounce a card to my hand, and then I attack your cargo juggernaut and take away your shield, and then I cry. That's a terrible exchange on my part. I think the cargo juggernaut's fine. Like you said, I think you summed it up very well. The 4/6 is whatever, but when you comes in with the shield and it comes in, you're not going to play this unless you're getting the 4 damage off of it that you're healing. So, like, this is a fine card, and I'm sure it'll see play at somewhere. Yeah, I'm not crazy about it, but it's not a bad card.
It feels like one of those cards that's going to like see some, like maybe not remarkable or exciting play, but see some play in set 1, and then once like the new hotness 6-drop in set 2 or 3 comes out, it's like this is a card that I don't think is long for the meta. It's probably going to fall away as better options come out, but it's not bad. All right, 3-cost Vigilance Event. Make an opening. Give a unit -2/-2 for the phase and heal 2 damage from your base. Those effects are good. 3, considering how cheap some of these events are that we've been looking at recently, 3 feels expensive for this effect, but it's basically kill a dude, heal your base a little bit. Probably can see some play. What do you think?
I think playing this is going to be awkward. I'm going to invest 3 resources to give a dude -2/-2, and then heal damage from my base. When do I want to do that? I can't do it in the early game because I might not have damage on my base yet, and the -2 might I think this, and then late game, like okay, I give a thing -2/-2 and heal 2 damage, but it's not like I think if it was like attack with a unit, give a unit -2/-2 and heal 2 damage. Like I think if there was an attack added to it, I'd like it a lot better. But having the play this and then I have to wait in action before I can take advantage of the -2, or I use it after I already attacked to finish a unit off, like making him get below 2 health. I think I like the effects on this card. I just think it's awkward to sequence when you want to play it, if that makes sense.
So I think this is what a Vigilance kill spell looks like. Vigilance as a faction has not seen a lot of access to direct damage, and this is obviously, -2/-2 is not direct damage, but I think that's how we should sort of categorize this card, this is what a Vigilance small removal looks like. It's a little too expensive. It's a little awkward. Probably if you're on Vigilance, you're going to be grabbing removal tools from whatever other color you're mixing in with your Vigilance leader. But in the case that you want to go double down Vigi, this is probably what a small removal looks like for all of its wards.
I guess, because Vigilance has Takedown for 4, which defeats a unit with 5 or less remaining HP, and on 5 it has Vanquish, which deletes a non-leader unit. So it has some more expensive removal options, but it doesn't.
Yeah, large removals, but again, not damage based.
Yeah. I just think it's awkward.
I guess this could kill a thing with 2 defense and a shield on it. Like, that is one way where non-damage based removal can sort of have an edge over damage based removal, but at 3 cost, yeah, it feels clunky.
Mm-hmm.
All right, moving on to Mothma. This is a 2-cost command heroism affiliated ground unit. She is a 1/3, and when played, search the top 5 cards of your deck for a rebel. Reveal it and draw it. The rest of the cards go on the bottom of your deck. 5 cards is not a very big number. How often are you just not going to hit a rebel? I don't know. If you hit a rebel, this feels pretty good. I feel like this is a card that goes into the rebel deck.
Mm-hmm.
And probably doesn't have a home anywhere outside of a very rebel-centric, rebel-focused deck. 1/3, 2 cost, 1/3 body. I am not excited about that. I really want this to get me essentially a replacement card in my hand for the one that I just played. Otherwise, I'm going to feel bad about it. What do you think about Mon Mothma?
She's Rebel Tarkin, but she's cheaper. Tarkin for 4 can pull multiple Imperial units. She just looks for 1. Now, the bonus of Mon Mothma. So, Tarkin is looking for... Well, he's looking for Imperial cards. He can pull maximum firepower. She can pull any Rebel card, so it doesn't have to be a unit. It could be a Rebel upgrade. It could be a Rebel event. So there is some flexibility there, and if you're building the Rebel deck, if this has a spot, that's, like you said, the only place it's going to be. And right now, more than likely, that's Leia, who's the green heroism command leader that can attack with multiple Rebel units with some action compression there. So I think if you play Mothma, it's in a Leia deck right now. And I think more than likely you'll hit a Rebel card at that point, because that's what you're going to be fitting in that deck. The body is not great, but you're trying to fix your hand or find a piece to make your later turn stronger. This isn't an aggression card by any means. She's okay. I'm not crazy about her. I don't know if I'd play her even in a Rebel deck, that if I'm fitting that many Rebels in.
It's a subpar body, but it doesn't cost you any card advantage. If it works, she replaces herself and your hand stays the same size. And that can be really significant in particular matchups, where having those options, having that card. But if you play her and it misses, ugh.
Yeah, that's terrible. If you play it and miss,
that feels terrible. Especially if you had a different, better 2-drop that you could play. All right, 5 cost, Steadfast Battalion. This is a 5/5 with Overwhelm and an on attack. If you control a leader unit, give a friendly unit +2/+2 for the phase. Did I say command? It's command affiliated.
I don't know. Overwhelm is fine. The stats are fine. I guess this card's good. I don't know. I haven't played with it yet. 5/5. Yeah, I'm going to say this card's good. It's got good stats for the cost. It's got a good keyword, and it has a good on-attack ability. Good card. Going to be a draft and limited hero, for sure.
5/5 for 5 is good by itself. Overwhelm, it would probably still be good, and then the ability to actually put 7/7 worth of value onto the board. There's nothing bad about this card. Not super exciting.
No, it's not super exciting, but I mean, there's nothing bad about it. There's nothing great
Yeah.
about it, but for like a green mid-range deck, like this is right. If you control leader, a lot of the mid-range leaders are going to be deploying on 5 or 6 when you're probably going to be playing this. So I think you'll get the on attack off more than likely, at least once.
Yeah. I mean, I have to imagine if you're going to put this card in your deck, you're going to try to play it around getting the on attack. But again, even if you don't, you're getting your 5 resource points worth of value out of it for sure. Just as a 5/5 with Overwhelm.
Yeah.
Okay, 6 cost command affiliated mercenary company ground unit. This is a 5/5 with ambush and overwhelm. Is ambush worth a whole recruit point? What do you think?
I think it is. I like this one more than Steadfast Battalion, to be honest. And
I agree.
Even though it's one more, getting the immediate impact of the ambush plus overwhelm is, I think, kind of crazy, right?
Yeah.
Two really
it can
good
let you burst
keywords.
for face.
Yeah, 2 really good keywords on a decent body. I think it's definitely worth the 1 resource.
Yeah, imagine you get the board set up where there's an enemy unit that has 1 remaining health. You play this, you kill their unit, and you burst their face for 4.
Mm-hmm.
That's rock solid.
Yeah,
I like this card.
glad we're in agreement.
Strike True. This art, I do not know what to make of it. I haven't commented on that much art tonight, but man, for one of my all-time favorite scenes in all of the Star Wars movies, it's not that the art's bad, but I don't like it. I think it's Luke's face. I don't. Anyway, I'm getting way too hung up on it. Strike True, 3 cost, command affiliated event. A friendly unit deals damage equal to its power to an enemy unit. So a conditional removal. What do you think?
I kind of like it. For 3, how much damage do you got to get out of it? I guess is the question, right? You're not going to play this early. This is a mid to late game removable option when you have bigger stuff out. Other than like like the only like green removal is like overwhelming barrage. Well, this is like, and that's even kind of, that's good, but that's a +2 and you deal the damage split among units. This is more of a direct damage spell for green, so they needed this. They didn't have access to it by themselves, so I like it in command. Now my issue with the art doesn't, like, I like the art style. It's kind of like that Galaxy of Adventures or whatever it was called, like art style. My issue is that he does not have a glove on his hand, which he should at this point, right? Or no, this is when he gets shot in the hand. He doesn't have the glove yet. The glove is after this. So I take that back, right? It's the Jabba's barge scene where he's reaching down for Han and gets shot in the hand with the blaster. So at this point, I guess he did not have the glove. So I retract my statement. I corrected myself. The artwork is perfect.
I have to edit that one out, huh?
No, I'll
So
keep
the
it.
internet doesn't get mean to you.
I'll keep it. I'm fallible. I'm human.
The guy in the background that's just like at a 45-degree angle makes me laugh too.
He's falling off. He just kicked him with the boot. He just did the boot
Like I
kick.
can hear the Wilhelm scream.
Ah!
Mechanically though, this is kind of like what I said about the vigilance direct damage kill spell. This is going to be either a large or small removal. It could be valid at more or less the whole game, from kind of like the early mid all the way into the end, as long as you do the setup. If you have the unit in play, and this is kind of what we've come to expect from Command with some of these effects. They'll give you, Command gets access to the effect, but it has to kind of do a thing to get there. If you are mixing Command with other colors that have more efficient removals, maybe this doesn't make it. But maybe if you're mixing Command with Vigilance and neither of those colors have like the best removals, well, that's not true. Vigilance has good hard removal at the top of the curve. But there's going to be times where this is going to be your best removal option. It's not fantastic, but it's not in a color that really is supposed to have access to like the best premium removal anyway.
Right.
Okay, Traderous, 5 cost command upgrade. It gives the unit +0/+0. When this upgrade becomes attached to a non-leader unit that costs 3 or less, take control of that unit. When this upgrade becomes unattached from a unit, that unit's owner takes control of it. So you get to steal a dude that costs 3 or less. Is this an effect you want to bring to the game?
I think this is 100% a card that you put in your sideboard, and you play it against upgrade heavy decks that are with like if you have a playing against somebody that's like a 3-cost Yoda that they put a Jedi lightsaber on. Now you have like a 6/7 Yoda with Restore 2 that gives a thing -2/-2 when it attacks. Like, you steal that Yoda with this card. I don't think you want to steal a unit that costs 3 or less unless it's upgraded somehow, because that is a bad resource trade for you. I'm going to give up 5 to take your thing that costs 3. That doesn't make sense to me in my head. But if I pay 5 to steal your thing that costs 3 that you invested like 3 other resources into, I'm cool with that. So that's where I think this is going to find a home. It's going to find a home in a sideboard, and it's going to be used against upgrade heavy decks.
I think the sideboard slot makes a lot of sense. I agree with you there. I also think this could have a home in a limited environment. When units are not as consistent, people's control of the board is a lot less even. There's a lot more underdropping in draft and sealed. And if the only unit a person has is a 3 cost and you steal their only thing, yeah, that's worth 5 resources. But as like a main board constructed deck, I agree with, or constructed card, I don't think it makes the cut there. Jetta, Agitator, 2 cost aggression affiliated ground unit. He's a 2/1 with Saboteur and an on attack effect. If you control a leader, deal 2 damage to a ground unit or base. I barely care about the on attack. It is good. The on attack is actually fine, but a 2 damage Saboteur for 2, I think that's what makes this card matter. What do you think?
I wish it cost 1. I don't know.
Sure.
I'm not too crazy about this one, to be honest. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what it is. Like, Saboteur is a great keyword, but that 1 health is going to die to a gnat flying across the table. Like, I don't know that you're ever going to get the on attack off, and I don't know that it's ever going to live long enough for the Saboteur to be relevant. I think this is a draft unlimited card. I do not think this is going to see much playing constructed, because 1 health is like, what are we doing here? I don't know. Like, you could ping that with a penny from, the Flesh and Blood table.
I mean, if you're using your removal on my 2-crossed Shield Ripper tech card, do I feel that bad about that? I don't know.
I just trade into it
Yes,
because
he
my
is
thing's going to
susceptible
live.
to ping. You're right about that. He is definitely susceptible to ping.
I mean, I'll just...
I see Saboteur as being a word that aggro decks are going to want access to. I do like the card. I think it was the first card we looked at today. Essentially a 1 cost that does exactly the same thing, but doesn't have the on attack upside. And I do like that card better, assuming you're in Cunning as a color and you have access to it.
I mean, I think we looked at a Spec Force Soldier last time, which is a 1 cost 2/2 that when played, a unit loses Sentinel for the face. Like, I'd rather just play that guy than this guy.
It's pretty good too. I mean, they kind of answered different problems. Like, is your meta going to have more shields or more Sentinel in it? I think your point about his 1 defense is good. If your opponent is playing Sentinels or shields, they know that they don't want to see the Saboteur keyword. So having the ability to eliminate this guy with incidental damage, even if you have to overcommit like a juicier attack into it just to get this guy out of the way so that I don't have the chance to rip your shields or go straight to your face, you're probably right that you're not going to get value out of Saboteur some significant percentage of the time. This guy's definitely more of a target than the 1-cost version, mainly because he has the added value on his attack. Not his attack stat, but the on-attack ability, I mean.
I'm gonna swing Mon Mothma into the Jetta Agitator, and Mothma's gonna live. Mothma's a better body. Like, that's ridiculous, right? Like, I'm not
That's
a
a fair
fan
point.
of this card. I'm not a fan of this card. I'm not a fan of the crappy Yeti he's holding in his hand in the art. I'm an aggression guy. I love aggression in the aspect. I'm just not a fan of this card.
Yeah, I don't like the art at all. I agree with you there. Okay, moving on to 2-cost aggression-affiliated event, power failure, defeat any number of upgrades on a unit. Sideboard at best.
Sideboard, 100%.
Maybe not even there. If there's not an upgrade, there has to be a critical mass of upgrades in the meta, otherwise this card is useless.
Mm-hmm. I mean, this can defeat shields, this can defeat experience tokens, it can defeat any card that has the word upgrade on it. So, I think it can see play, but I don't think you're ever going to main deck this. I don't think this is a card you really want to see in Draft and Seal. I think this is a card you put in your
Depends
sideboard.
on the meta. Like, if you know you're going into a meta that's going to be dominated by decks that are using a lot of upgrades, experience tokens, shields, these things, maybe. But that's a big yeah, I feel like sideboard at best is probably safe.
Yep.
Oh wait, are we done? Because we did these guys last time.
No.
Oh, no, an errant slide got in the way there. Okay, Bounty Hunter Crew. This is a 6-cost cunning villainy affiliated ground unit. He's a 4/4 6-drop. With ambush and when played, you may return an event from a discard pile to its owner's hand. I can't imagine you ever give your opponent one of their things back. So probably you're getting one of your own, or potentially, I guess, a teammate if we ever figure out how multiplayer works. 6-cost, 4/4 ambush, get an event back. Well, we crapped on a 6-cost 4/6 that gave you a 2-drop back. Does the change of a 2-drop to an event make you feel like this Bounty Hunter Crew fares any better? What do you think?
I think it does because I think yellow has better events than green has access to 2 drops you put in your hand, right? Like, No Good to Me Dead is a 2-cost event that freezes an opponent's unit for 2 turns. So the body isn't great. The ambush makes it a little better because you're going to trade down into something probably, but you're really paying for this for the event recursion.
Yeah.
No Good to Me Dead, or if you're playing all yellow, getting to play Cunning a 4th time. Like, there's some ridiculous things that yellow has access to, so being able to do those things more often, I think is if you're playing, this is a late game card, so if you're locked into mono yellow, or you're doing some version of a control deck with yellow for the event package, I could see you throwing this in there to get some recursion out of it.
I think the way to think about this guy is as a 6-cost event that says kill something with 4 health, get an event out of your KO pile. Like, you play this, you run it in, the 4 defense, it's not trying to survive. It's just dealing 4 damage somewhere where you need it, hopefully killing a thing, and then giving you whatever the best event is that you've already played this game. I really don't care about these bases. Lothal looks fine. The other 2 bases look fine. That's about all I have to say about them. Do you have any comments on the bases?
No. Nice artwork. So that was it for card reveals. Next thing is the community deck. So do you want to give some background on this, and then we
Sure.
can talk about it?
So I was talking to my buddy, Slip Capone on Discord, and we were talking about leaders, and he was mentioning how everybody thinking Sabine is this new hotness is not the right call. Like, he's got this idea that's a deck that's going to deal with Sabine and is a solid answer to this. And he wrote up a deck list for it. There's actually a very good write-up. We should link the deck in the show notes. But I want to take a minute and just kind of highlight the deck and talk about what his reasoning was there. I mean, most of it's laid out within, and here, let me do this. Most of the logic is laid out within the deck description, which, total side note, in every card game ever, how come nobody ever fills out their deck descriptions? Like, it's always just a list of cards, and it doesn't, like, come on, that doesn't say what format does it. So I appreciate that the deck description is laid out there. In order to really know what slip is going into in talking about some of these specific choices, like when he's talking about his removal options here, you kind of have to know what Sabine is doing. So you got to think about the types of units that are going to be in a Sabine deck. Obviously, her as a unit, or her card itself has 3 health. And then he talks about like 4 and 5 health removal options that need to come in here. Now, I did think it was funny that the leader that he brought up saying, "Oh, this is going to be a great leader." We kind of dunked on this chick last week. So, have you had a chance to look over this deck, and do you feel like the layout here makes you feel a little less harsh in your Aiden Versio analysis?
I think Aiden as a leader is a decent counter deck to Sabine. Her ability to heal goes against Sabine trying to. Her ping effect is negated if Aiden can heal. The 4/4 still isn't great. The shield is whatever, it's relevant sometimes. My stance really hasn't changed on Aiden overall. I have played about a dozen games of this matchup in 2 Slip's deck, both playing with Aiden and with Sabine. My version of Sabine, which is cunning. So we can talk about the deck and kind of my thoughts afterwards, I guess, once we just talk over the deck itself, and I can give kind of what my consensus was on how the matchups went from our games.
Sure. Well, let's start at the bottom here with Entrenched. Now, this was a card that when we initially reviewed it, I feel like I was kind of lukewarm, but I remember you pointing out that you could put this on somebody else's unit to stop them from attacking bases, and that got me kind of excited. Now, Slip's advice here on using it is just as a board control tool. Just make a unit chonky and lock your opponent out of it by killing all their stuff. How do you feel about Entrenched in this matchup?
Um, if you so if you play the Entrenched in the space arena, because it's not locked, right, to an arena.
Which I'm sure there's some theme fanboys out there who are like, you can't entrench in space.
Right.
But yes, you can do that within the game.
Yeah. So I mean, if you get like an entrenched on Inferno 4, that can be a problem for Sabine to deal with, because they gotta invest a significant amount of resources into dealing with that, like Inferno 4 or the System Patrol Craft, right? If you entrench that, now that's a 6-7 Sentinel unit, and if I'm investing all my resources into that, I'm probably losing the damage race to the base. So entrenched can be brutal at times for Sabine to deal with. If you play entrenched on my units, that can also be pretty brutal, because I, as a Sabine player, am most of the time not looking to trade units. I'm looking to kind of ignore your units and just pump as much damage as possible. So forcing me to not be able to attack your base can be bad also, but I think the stronger play is definitely like entrenched on a Sentinel unit that I have to invest a bunch of resources in, because if I'm investing a bunch of resources into that entrenched big butt unit with Sentinel, as a Sabine player, I am probably going to end up losing the damage race at that point, because if I have to invest the resources into removing that dude, I'm probably losing some of my own units in the process, so you can get the Aiden pings, the Aiden heals off more consistently, and then that also slows down the damage race. but I mean, with stuff like heroic sacrifice and right, you can add in more stuff that adds saboteur if you want. I mean, I have the Spec Force soldier in mind, which makes something lose Sentinel, so it did okay. But yeah, entrenched can be pretty brutal for Sabine, especially in the space arena.
Yeah, I think the play of putting it on Sentinels really, if the main goal of the deck is to just be as slow and annoying to deal with and throw up as many barricades for the aggro player, dropping a trench onto a Sentinel is certainly a way to do that. Moving into the events, we've got max copies of Takedown, Open Fire, and Force Choke. These kind of do very similar things. Like, it's all about removal. Do you have any thoughts on the events, the removal package here?
The events are fine. The only thing that has more than 4 health in most of the decks is going to be the Sabine leader herself, which is 5. So takedown and force choke both hit that, and then open fire hits everything else. So the removal package is very solid and very annoying to play into. 9 just units that can 9 events that can just straight up remove pretty much whatever I play.
So, speaking of
Yeah.
something that's annoying to play into, one of the lines that Slip breaks down here is going probe droid to look at your opponent's hand into regional governor and being able to name a card and prevent your opponent from playing the named card. Now, I find this line to be kind of funny given how much I have argued with Slip over the years about like discard effects and disruption effects, the probe droid and lockout with the regional governor, and then within this, I mean, again, this write-up is great because he specifically names cards that he's looking for with that in the matchup. I think that's great, but it also just seems like, man, I thought you weren't about that, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. The regional governor.
Definitely. Oh, go
Go
ahead.
ahead. No, you go ahead.
Oh, well, I was going to say in a competitive environment, I don't think you can rely on the probe droid. I think you kind of have to fall back on more your meta knowledge and playing to the matchup. But having the ability to hand check before dropping the regional governor is certainly going to increase its consistency. Anyway, what were you saying, man? Sorry.
The regional governor, I don't know. Like his targets that he names there are all good except for I don't think shoot first is a main board card. I think it's more of a sideboard card. So I'd rather, as Aiden name, like surprise strike or like 4 cause I believe in, or like red 3, or maybe even like heroic sacrifice or K2SO. Like there's a lot of options Sabine has, which is, even though like this deck, I'll talk about it then, plays pretty well into Sabine. Like Sabine has options. So if you're thinking of like whatever regional governor names, I have options the other way that I'll be fine. I feel like, but I think shoot first is probably a mistake in most Sabine games. I think maybe surprise strike, K2SO, or heroic sacrifice are better options to name at this point.
Some of
But
it's certainly going to come down to your meta, like
mm-hmm.
knowing what people that you play with are likely to play or what people in the tournament room are likely to play. I could definitely see there being some variation based on play group there.
Yeah.
So, what were your thoughts overall about the matchup? Given this was a deck specifically designed to take down Sabine, I mean, named Sabine Slayer, and I know you've put some reps in with Sabine. How threatening do you feel like this is when you're in the Sabine shoes? Like, what are you looking for as Sabine to deal with the healing, to deal with the roadblocks that Aiden's trying to throw in your way?
It definitely makes me nervous, and from the games I played, what it came down to is Sabine ahead in the damage race before Aiden deploys. Sabine deploys 2 rounds earlier. If you are not ahead on damage at that point as a Sabine player, I feel like you're gonna drop the game at that point. And I think the really key cards that gave a lot of problems for me as a Sabine player were Del Miko. So Del Miko, he's only a 3/3, but he has the restore one, which is annoying, but the making me pay one more for my events, right? Just making me less cost efficient because I'm topping out at 4 or 5 resources. So having to pay like 4 for a cause I believe in, or 3 for surprise strike, 3 for spark of rebellion, that stuff, 2 for heroic sacrifice, like that stuff slowed me down. It's probably 50-50. At least the games I played about a dozen games, and I feel like it was about 50-50. I didn't like take notes. Maybe I should have, but it definitely gave me more problems than a lot of other decks playing as Sabine. There's just a lot of stuff that's annoying to deal with, right? Del Miko is annoying to deal with, and then if they get Veers out, Del Miko is now a 4/4. That's harder to deal with for me as a Sabine player. The Academy Defense Walker is a pain in the butt if that comes down, because it has Sentinel. It's a decent unit, and it gives experience tokens to other things. Yeah, like the Entrenched, the Del Miko, and the Veers. Like if those things all happen, like I'm probably losing as Sabine. If I get to the Academy Walker coming down, like the game was over 3 rounds before that. Sabine has to be ahead on damage. You have to get your ground units and your raid, like red 3, and you got to be ahead in the ground arena, and you got to be ahead on damage before Aiden deploys. Because when Aiden deploys, she's coming in shielded, she's healing things, and there's gonna be so much that you're investing into not dealing damage to the base that you're just gonna be too far behind if you're not ahead on damage before Aiden deploys. That's at least what I found. If I was ahead on damage when Aiden deployed, I was in a pretty good spot. If I was behind on damage, when Aiden deployed, I lost most of those games. The one swing that could change it is the heroic sacrifice K2SO play, because you can get like 8 damage to base potentially to close the game. So if you can get the K2SO heroic sacrifice plays off, you could maybe come back, but like they were really close games. All the games were pretty close. But if regional governor, whatever they call, just go the other way. Like Sabine has options to go around it, but you got to get hit on damage early. If they control your units early, you're probably going to lose it, Sabine. You got to get ahead on damage fast against Aiden.
So I suppose the real question comes down to meta-analysis. So being able to beat the best deck, and grain of salt, we don't really know what the best deck is right now, but there is a lot of chatter in the community about how Sabine is incredibly strong. It seemed at this moment in time, it seems like community sentiment is leaning towards that being like the tier 1 deck. So a deck being able to go 50-50 against something that's in tier 1 is good, but that can't be the end-all be-all of your deck analysis. You then have to take a look at that deck and say, well, how is this going to survive in a Swiss room with other leaders? So if this matchup is 50-50 and you've got to look at the rest of the room, do you feel like you'd be better off with this tanky, grindy value engine Aiden deck, or trying to burn people down with Sabine? If you had to go to a cash tournament this weekend, what are you bringing?
Sabine.
Is that because of familiarity with the hero, or do you think that or the leader, sorry, or do you think that's the overall stronger deck between the two?
I think it's just overall stronger into the field, because the ability Sabine has to go fast, like even against Aiden, if Sabine goes, like Aiden's gonna lose. Like I said, if Sabine can get ahead early against anybody, she's gonna win. It's Aiden what Aiden does well against Sabine, and in Slip's deck specifically, is the disruption of Sabine with all the events can remove any of the units. The entrenched on the Sentinel units can be annoying. The Del Miko and Veers. If those both hit the table, that is super annoying to deal with. So there's just a lot of things that can annoy you, but you can still get through it. And I don't think any other deck has that combination of crap to annoy Sabine. You can get, I mean, if anybody draws perfect, you could blow out anybody, I guess. But
Sure.
Sabine
Yeah.
into the field overall, I just feel like has, I mean, it's like early meta aggro, right? It's usually the stronger thing. But yeah, I mean, I'd take Sabine or Boba Fett. Boba Fett with aggression, or Sabine with aggression is probably what I would take to an event if I was playing in a cash
Sure.
tournament this weekend.
Well,
Boba Fett has some
definite
crazy stuff happening too.
definite appreciation to Slip for turning me onto this deck and shooting the link my way so we could talk about it here on the show. I definitely like seeing deck lists that have descriptions next to them. I issue that challenge to anybody making decks in the community. Give us some descriptions and cool deck names. I like that stuff.
Very fair.
Did you have any other thoughts about the matchup or about Slip's deck in particular?
No, Slip's deck is very, very well built. I don't think Aiden's that great, but he made a good Aiden deck, so props to Slip.
Yeah. It did surprise me when he's like, "Oh, I've got this deck that just eats the tier 1 deck in the meta," and then it was this leader. I'm like, "Okay, hold on."
All right, I guess we'll go into listener questions. Start off, we had some on Twitter. Wampa Radio wants to know how we will deal with the naughty knots who peek at their packs while pulling their leaders in draft. Do you throw them in the Rancor pit, or do you throw them in the Sarlacc pit? That's what they want to
As
know.
a player, I'm probably just gonna ignore it because I don't like being the kind of guy. Like, if I'm gonna call a judge over, like, something serious needs to have happened. So as a player, I'll probably just, all right, man, you're not whatever. If I'm a TO and I'm running an event, I'm going to do my best to educate my players before the event starts. So I can be like, hey, these are the expectations. Understand that if you're peeking at your cards, that is considered a violation of the rules. And we're going to take that seriously. And then I would treat it like any other, like, tournament rule infraction, warning coupled with education, maybe a second warning. Hey, if this happens again, we've got a problem. Like, you got to treat people like people. But if it's going to be a rule, the thing you can't do is have rules on paper that aren't enforced, because that just erodes the credibility of the TO. So you either have to enforce it, or you have to say, hey, that's not the rule. House rules here. I don't care if you look at your packs, one way or the other. What
So
do you think?
their options for us were to throw them in the Sarlacc pit or the Rancor pit. And I'm gonna go with third option. I'm gonna throw them in the Spice Mines of Kessel. That's where I'm gonna throw them. But I'm gonna mirror what you said.
Okay.
As a player, I don't really care. Whatever. Right. I'm doing it to have fun. It's supposed to be casual, limited fun event. If you peek at your cards, I don't really care. But as a TO, I think you have to make sure everybody's playing by the same rules. So I just mirror or ditto what you said. Another question we had on Twitter was from the TCG cast, which was the Lorcana cast. They've rebranded as TCG cast to cover more games. They also revealed 2 of the cards we covered tonight. They had 3 questions. So the first one is, which card do you feel is the most powerful so far? Overall, most powerful card.
I mean, just in terms of being able to do a thing that has like the strongest board impact, like that Darth Vader that we looked at tonight, Palpatine. These are certainly the most powerful in terms of like big splashy impact. But in terms of like game deciding, I think something like I'm blanking on it now. Is it Surprise Attack? Surprise Strike? The like pay 1 for damage. Like those kinds of cards end up being what define metas. Gosh, why am I blanking on that card name?
Surprise Strike. Pay 2 plus 3 damage when you attack with the unit.
Yeah, that kind of thing is what I was thinking of. So lower overall power, but it's more powerful in the form of consistently impacting games. Because the most powerful cards, like 8-drops, you only see them in so many games. So I guess that's 2 answers.
It's fine. I'm also going to give 2. I think it's the 7-drop Luke unit that comes in and deals -3/-3, or gives a unit -3/-3, or -6/-6, and then it has Restore 3, and it's this big, awesome Luke unit. The card that I think actually that will see a bunch of play that might be the most impactful, K2SO, the 4/4 with Overwhelm and the ability to deal 3 damage to a base when it's defeated. That paired with the Heroic Sacrifice is a ridiculous combo. So I'm going to go with that. The second question, what color/aspect is the strongest? So what color or aspect overall is the strongest? So we'll just do
This
the...
moment in time, I think aggression looks
I
best positioned.
agree. And then what color aspect do you feel is the weakest?
Command. Like, I feel like a lot of green cards are like, oh, we're gonna ramp. We're gonna throw out a little bit of experience, and it feels a little dirtily to me. Like you're building an engine to not like huge great payoffs.
I'm going to go with Vigilance overall. Like, Hero Vigilance I think is strong. I think Villain Vigilance is not as strong. I feel like a lot of the stuff Vigilance wants to do, like, you can answer with a keyword. I don't know.
Is that keyword Saboteur?
Yeah, and overall I think like Luke is a stronger leader than what Krennic and Aiden are. So yeah, that was it for Twitter, and then we had some on Discord. Excuse me while I go get them. Nerd Parker of SwooDB and The Force Unlimited, yet another Star Wars Unlimited podcast, wants to know, do you rate cards differently for sealed versus draft, or is it only limited versus constructed? So
Yes.
So sealed versus draft is different than just limited versus constructed for you. You want to explain that a little
So
bit?
yeah. Because the deck building process is so different. Because I didn't know this was going to be one of the questions, but I kind of mentioned this earlier when we were talking about sealed versus draft, generally speaking. At least in my mind, draft is an additive construction process. I start with my leader, and then I think, okay, well, maybe I'm going to go this way, but as I see cards and as the packs go around, the draft itself sort of shapes my deck building to a degree. Whereas in limited, or sealed, sorry, I get the whole pool, and then I get to subtract and chisel away to find the card within. So it is, I think the difference in card evaluation between limited and constructed is a much bigger difference than the difference between draft and sealed. I can't immediately think of a good example of a card that would be good in draft, but maybe less good in sealed. But I don't think it's that hard to imagine, since the deck building process is so different, that there would certainly be some cards that would have different valuation between those two, even if I'm, again, not able to come up with an immediate example off the top of my head.
Yeah, I think the deck building, like you said, is obviously different, but like just thinking about just tonight when we were talking about card evaluations, we either said draft or sealed, constructed, maybe sideboard, right? We never said, oh, this is only good at draft, or oh, this is only good in sealed. So for me, I think I just look at it as constructed or limited card pools, and then within those card pools, just the deck building process is different. But I think if a card is good or not in draft or sealed or constructed, I don't think you really could have a card that's good in draft but not be good in sealed, or vice versa. I don't know how that
No,
would
I
ever
think it would
happen.
almost have to go the other way. I think in sealed, because you get the whole pool, you have the ability to maybe add synergy cards in more easily than in draft. So there might be like a combo payoff card that I could include in sealed because I know I have the payoff piece, where in draft, oh, I'm not going to take that because if I don't get this other card, that's a dead card. So I think it would be very unlikely that there would be a card that would be better in draft than in sealed. I think it would almost have to go the other way because of the nature of those two. I don't know. That's a very interesting question. I actually want to do like a little bit of like self-interrogation and really dig down on my my assumptions there and see if I change my mind over time. But I my knee-jerk reaction feels pretty confident that there has to be some difference in analysis if we get really deep into it. And I would argue the distinction of what we always say, constructed versus limited, and that I think that's because that's where we put our focus. And if we put more focus on draft versus sealed, I think those distinctions would become more apparent to us. I, I just haven't spent enough time differentiating the two different limited formats to have that right handy.
That's fair.
I really like that question, though. This is exactly the kind of thing I like talking about.
I didn't really have anything else. I just wanted to shout out the SWU Holocron. Huge catalog. It's like a wiki of everything Star Wars Unlimited. Covers content creators, any new thing that we put out when this podcast goes live. He's got the RSS feed. It's going to populate on the website for new stuff that came out. He has a new undertaking that I wanted to mention. He's going to start cataloging the lore of the cards for Star Wars Unlimited on SW Star Wars Unlimited Holocron.com.
That's cool, man.
That is a crazy undertaking, and I mentioned it to him in Discord that that's a crazy endeavor, and he's pumped so much effort and time into the community. He's the one at PAX Unplugged that had built the booster packs to draft based off of rarity distribution numbers they gave in the article, and it was as close as we could get based on all the information we had, like printed, sleeved, in cube packs ready to go. Like, the amount of effort this guy's put in the community is ridiculous. So I just wanted to shout out
That's awesome.
Ozymandias. I don't know how to pronounce that, but the guy that runs this Star Wars Unlimited Holocron.
I haven't known how to pronounce that since Watchmen came out, man.
Yeah, whatever. However you pronounce it, thank you. That the amount of work you're doing is ridiculous, and this new endeavor to cover the lore for each card, 252 cards plus the 2 tokens, ridiculous. So just wanted to give him a shout out here at the end. You have anything else you'd like to say before we peace out?
Well, I'm gonna shout out Ozymandias too, because that sounds awesome.
Yeah. So if you haven't been to his website, I'll link it in the show notes along with Slip's deck article. But it is swuholocron.com. So on top of sw-unlimited-db.com and swdb.com, SW Holocron is another one to keep your eyes on.
And I suppose I will add here at the end that for a while now, I've been trying to line up my US time zone with Slip's Australian time zone so we could record something. So I hope we said some things about his deck that upset him enough that we can make it work, and he can come on here and tell me what I got wrong.
How about this? Slip, your deck sucks. Then
No.
Well, you wanted something that would make him mad, right? So there you go. How about this? Discard is amazing, and you should have had more discard in your deck. You should have had more discard in your deck, Slip.
Just exactly mad enough to be motivated to figure out our schedule so we can record something. But no more. No more.
Yeah. All right. If that's it, we'll see if this works. Nope. All right. So for Mr. Ben, Banana Crapshoot, thanks for hanging out with us in the space arena and the ground arena, and we will see you in the arenas.